Hey, what is going on, guys? My name is Dean, or as most of you know me, Twisty, and let's take a look at round two. We're going to wrap it up today, let you know everything that happened. So let's start with the ladder. We have a look. The Bulldogs on top of the ladder there, undefeated, along with Sydney, the Gold Coast, and North Melbourne, the four teams without a loss. The four teams without a win, we see Carlton, Brisbane, Fremantle, and St Kilda there on the bottom of the ladder. And then we had a host of teams in the middle there, all on one win and one loss. Now, let's jump straight into the first game here. I was there on Friday night. What a game in the end it was. It was a very poor skill level game, I thought. Collingwood versus Richmond. First half was very lackluster, and it got a bit more open as the game went on. More goals were kicked in the third quarter than in the first half, and then in the last quarter compared to, I think, the rest of the game. So, a lot of goals kicked in the second half of this game, much more open. Fasolo, the best man on the ground, easily 6 goals for him. Only one who really looked dangerous all the time. Jaden Short kicked 3 goals on debut, and Trent Cotchin with 38 touches there, along with Adam Treloar, 32 for the Pies. I thought that Richmond should have won this game. Obviously, they lose with 5 seconds to go with a Grundy goal, but they made so many errors in that final quarter, just panicking and not holding the ball down. They just didn't play cohesively as a team. They each tried to individually just push the ball, and it just did not work. Collingwood, they didn't even play a great game. Neither of these teams played very good on Friday night. I was very disappointed with the skill level at about halftime or even three-quarter time. I thought both sides probably didn't even deserve a win because of the poor skills that they were displaying. But Collingwood were just able to put the pressure on. They had all the momentum in the last 5 minutes of the game and got over the line with a couple of good decisions that went their way. So Collingwood 1-point winners. But it's still hard to see either of those teams doing much later down the track in the year. They just don't look complete sides yet. And if we have a look at the next game, Adelaide versus Port Adelaide, this was a big surprise to a lot of people because Port Adelaide, they're the team that we always expect to do something good. And Port Adelaide have teased us over the last few years. Ever since they got within a kick of the grand final against Hawthorn a couple of years ago, they have sort of under-delivered. And I think that pattern is going to continue. I don't think they're ever going to get back to that best that they were back in 2013 or 2014. It might have been. But Port Adelaide, they're not quite there yet. They're always... Whenever they look like they're going to do something, they do the complete opposite. They're the new North Melbourne, I feel, Port Adelaide, because, they've proven themselves to a certain extent by making that preliminary final a couple of years ago. The personnel hasn't really changed that much, but just the output of what they're doing on game day isn't as good. And Adelaide, they look like a very dangerous side. They probably got the most dangerous forward line in the competition. You look at Lynch, Walker, Betts, Jenkins, all these guys, and Taylor Walker doesn't even kick that many goals these days. It's everybody else down there. So it's those guys who are trying to actually get everyone over the line. And Adelaide are going to be a very high scoring side. They're going to be very dangerous, I feel, this season. They could definitely get into the 8. They have the hardest draw in the AFL, but Adelaide, they got some very important stuff to do. Moving on to the next game, and the Bombers got over the line here. I was scratching my head as to how Melbourne could have messed this one up. They played so well against the Giants last week in the last quarter, and they started that game so well. But this week, all the hype surrounding Melbourne, they're the new team that's going to push teams to their limits, and they played atrociously, I thought. Essendon were very good as well. Zach Merritt, 32 touches. Zaharaka's probably the best man on the ground with 34. And Joe Danaher just looked dangerous every time he got up forward. He just needs to kick it a bit straighter. 2 goals for there. But Melbourne, where to from here? You cannot lose to a side that is a completely new side. They have no players that have played together pretty much, and they've lost 12 of their senior players. Melbourne, you cannot lose this game if you are trying to push yourselves forward. It's just a horrible, horrible loss. I don't even know what to say there. in terms of what Melbourne just dished up on the weekend. It was atrocious. It was poor, and it definitely did not deserve the win. Next game we're going to look at is the twilight game from Saturday. The Brisbane Lions against North Melbourne. Once again, Brisbane doing all right. They scored quite heavily again, so they've got 100 in their first game and then 83 in their second game. So they're still probably about 3 goals short this game of where they wanted to be, averaging that 100 points per game I'm talking about. And North Melbourne, Jared Waite looks like a renewed player this season. He's done very well. He's kicked 5 goals again this week to go off the back of his 3 or 4 last week, I think. And he just looks very dangerous up forward. He also had 23 disposals, which I think is career high for Jared Waite. Ben Brown kicking the 3 goals as well down there. And Brent Harvey once again with the 24 disposals. I didn't really catch too much of this game, to be honest, so I can't quite let you know everything that went on. But North Melbourne, started 2-0. This is a game they probably would have dropped last season or even the season beforehand. So if they can keep beating the teams that they should be beating, they're definitely on track to finish very high up in the top half of the ladder. So watch out for North Melbourne this season. They could do a lot of damage. On to the Maddies match game. Riewoldt 300. Nick Riewoldt, of course. And St Kilda were just pretty poor. I thought, it's your captain's 300th game. He's one of the most beloved players in the competition. And they didn't play all that well, all that flash. Just the 5 goals for the game, with Nick kicking 2 of those. Montagna was good as always. Jack Stephen and Nick Riewoldt there with the leading ball winners for the Saints. But the Dogs, everybody's talking about the Bulldogs' attack and how good the Dogs' attack is. But the Dogs' defense, super really good. Everybody's talking about how good their attack is, but their defense, the league average this season for total score is about 97 points per team. So they've conceded 74 points in their opening 2 games. They are looking a very dangerous defensive side, and they can counterpunch very hard with guys like Murphy in the back line, Johannesson, a lot of run there, Eastonwood, these types of players. And Tom Boyd looks to be a good player. 3 goals this week, so he is definitely moving up in the world, and I can see him just coming out of his own this season and doing very well. And now we look at the other Saturday night game, and I called this one. You guys know I called this one in my tips on Friday. I said, this is my pick of the week. I said the Gold Coast Suns will beat the Fremantle Dockers, and what do you know? The Suns are 26-point winners. They pretty much held that lead for most of the day. Every time Freo got somewhat near, the Suns just kicked away. Tom Lynch kicked 5, Jack Martin kicked 4, Matera a couple, Archie kicked a couple, and Gary Ablett wasn't even in their leading disposal winners. So I think he had 23 disposals for the game, but gee, they look good, the Gold Coast. They did look good, and Fremantle, where to from then? There, Ballantyne kicked 4, Walters 3, and Fife 3. Fife was easily the Dockers' best player, but it's hard to see where they can do something, because Nat Fife said, they've lost confidence in their own game plan. They're scoring more, but it's also leaving their defence with big holes. So it's hard to see Fremantle being able to kick a winning score and be able to defend it now, which was something that they were so used to doing. So we'll wait and see how long it takes them to click with this new sort of changes to the game plan, but it doesn't look good for Fremantle so far, and there might be some issues for them going forward. I think they've got a big game coming up this week, which could potentially put them 0-3. They play the West Coast this week, so Fremantle start 0-3. It's going to be big questions asked of them if they can't go over the line against the Eagles this week. Now let's take a look at the Coleman medal race. Let's take a break from all the games. So we're just going to have a look at the top leaders here. I think the top 10. So we've got Josh Kennedy with 10 goals after kicking 8 last week. Only managed the 2 this week. Jenkins kicked another 4 this week. Tom Lynch for the Gold Coast kicked 5. Jared Waite kicked 8 for North Melbourne. Jared Waite didn't kick 8. Jared Waite kicked 5, I think, to go with his 3. The week before, Buddy kicked another 4. He's in there as well. And then we look at 7 goals, Stringer for Solo and Lynch for Solo with his bag of 6. And then 6 goals each to Jack Martin and Eddie Betts. Eddie kicked 5, Martin kicked 4. So some interesting names up there early, but it is only round 2, so I guess we'll have to wait and see as we go along. I'll keep you guys updated every week with that. And now we have a look at the Sunday games, the Giants and the Cats. I did see this one coming, but I did want to just tip all the away teams for the lols. But the Giants, they had a very poor performance against Melbourne last week. Should have won that game. Lost it by 2 points in the end. And Geelong, everyone, they're new, they're fresh. They are the new premiership favourites. And because they beat the Hawks last week, and they just did not look anywhere near that side. They were a shadow of that side, if you will. But the Giants, they look good. Mumford was a wrecking ball, absolutely crushing everything. Steve Johnson kicked a couple of goals, and he had the ball with a second to go before the siren. I thought that was pretty ironic. And Ryan Griffin was probably the best player on the ground. He kicked a couple of goals, including the sealer. Was very good around the clearances and had 32 touches. Hawkins kicked 3, including that miracle 50-metre soccer goal. That was just amazing. Enright, Guthrie, and Dangerfield, the leading ball winners for Geelong. I think Geelong, they're still going to be thereabouts. We saw Hawthorn probably didn't click last week, but they were much better this week. So let's take a look at that. Hawthorn, pretty much the same result against the grand final last year. 99 to 53, 46-point winners. What was the final margin in the grand final last year? Let's have a look, shall we? We look at the 2015 AFL results. And the grand final last year, Hawthorn won 107 to 61. So that is actually a 46-point win once again. So that's basically it. The same thing as the grand final. I think there's about 8 points extra for each side on the final last year. But Josh Gibson kicked his first goal for the Hawks. Would you believe it? And he had 44 possessions playing off the half-back line. That's absolutely unbelievable. Kennedy kicked one goal, just the one? Maybe just the one. Maybe he kicked 2. I don't know. It says he's got 10. Anyway, maybe he kicked 9 last week. Maybe 8. I can't tell. Anyway, Darling kicked 3 for the Eagles, but they just whether or not they can play the MCG is kind of what everyone's saying is, can their game plan translate to other grounds around Australia rather than just Subiaco, and that's kind of what opened them up last year. It'd be interesting to see how that goes. Same thing with the Bulldogs. They have a very similar game style at Etihad Stadium. They own that stadium, but whether or not they can translate it to a bigger ground such as the MCG is yet to be determined. Alright, let's look at the final game of the round. Carlton and the Swans. The Swans over the line by 10 goals here. Buddy kicked 4, Tippett kicked 4, and Sinclair kicked 3. Tommy Mitchell with 34 disposals. I didn't see any of this game, so I can't tell you anything that happened. Maybe I saw like 5 minutes, and I saw Boakhurst got the ball like once. But that's pretty much all I saw. So here are the stats. I cannot tell you anymore. I'm sorry if I cannot, because there was so much on, and I had to go out last night. I saw Richo at a pub. Didn't get a picture though. That was pretty funny. But yeah, that is it. And thank you for watching today's wrap-up. If you did enjoy, please leave a big thumbs up. And we will be back with a round preview on Friday this week. So stay tuned for that. Anyway, I will see you guys later.